Welcome to Wisconsin Brewing Company Park, and happy Wednesday. Thank you for coming out to another night at the DockHaus. I'm Dominic Stearn. This is another show, DockHaus Dialogue with Dom. And tonight I'm thrilled to be joined by Jack Jennings. He is one of the DockHounds baseball operations managers here. So essentially, Jack is one of the people who controls who is on the field that you are watching wearing the Lake Country DockHounds uniforms. Jack, thank you so much for joining me tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dom. Thanks for having me, and just really excited to be back in the ballpark for the start of this next year. And obviously Tom and Huck and I have been looking forward to opening day for months and months now, and we're putting together names for this 2025 roster, and we're really excited with what we've come up with so far.
And it was a lot to build off of, because the first year that you came in, the team saw a drastic improvement, missed out on the playoffs by tiebreaker, and then this past season the team made the playoffs for the first time. How much momentum have you felt from players wanting to come here and join the DockHounds for year 4?
Yeah, we've had tons of momentum. It's been night and day from my first year and my first day coming in here to today. Obviously the first year the team struggled, only won 34 games, but we came out in 2023 and ended the season really strong. And like you said, we were a tiebreaker away from making the playoffs, and we've had lots of strong individual performances from players on our team, which I think has only helped, being able to promote our brand and tell players that, Lake Country is a great place to play. And so going into year 4 for us and year 3 for this baseball group, we're really excited about the guys who, we have come into the field for 25. And, there's probably still a few names who are still to be announced. And, we're just really excited about the direction of where this team is going.
The fun thing about your job and also managing a roster in the American Association is it's never a finalized product until you go into that final week of the regular season and the roster's locked and you can't add any more players unless if someone gets transferred, right, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But for you, can you just go over what your role fully entails with the DockHounds? Because I can say, oh yeah, you help Tom and Huck recruit players, but it's far more than that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of things. I think the biggest thing for me is just to be there for our baseball staff and be there for Tom and Ken Huckaby, our manager, and Paul Wagner, our pitching coach, and Dave Pano, our hitting coach. And that's the first thing is to find players to play the game that they want it played on the field. And Pano and Huck love guys who can run. So one of the biggest things is trying to find guys who are threats on the base paths. We really value defense, so we look for guys who, at any level, whether it's college, in the minor leagues, wherever it may be, you have a good glove at multiple positions. We value versatility. We value how you go about your business at the plate. Not striking out, driving in runs. There's lots of things that we take into account when looking for new players, and how are they going to be able to come in and help Lake Country for this next season.
Yeah, really excited to start rolling out some of the player interviews that I've started to conduct, and then Brian and I will be working on making sure those look and sound as great as possible. So you can catch all of that on our DockHounds YouTube page. So if you aren't able to make it out to the DockHaus Dialogue at 5:45, every Wednesday you can watch us on YouTube. And of course, if you're out here tonight and you want to watch a previous episode, you can go ahead and find that on our Lake Country DockHounds YouTube page. And for you, you grew up in a family that just indulged in baseball. Your father, he works for the Houston Astros currently, also worked for the Milwaukee Brewers. You've been working in baseball ever since you graduated from middle school, working your way up, kind of like some of these players, Lakeshore Chinooks, and then a smaller role with the other team that will not be named, yes, and then now with the Lake Country DockHounds. When did you realize that you wanted to pursue a career in baseball?
I always wanted to pursue a career in baseball. I think the dream for everyone is obviously to become a player and to get to play the game as long as you can. But for everyone, that's not always possible. So I wanted to be, as soon as I realized that I wasn't going to be able to make a career on the field, I realized that I'd really love to make a career off the field where I could be involved in being at a baseball stadium every day, and not only that, but be involved with the winning of that team. And I think that's what's really exciting is this group. I feel like we've identified what it takes to win in this league, and I think we are very focused and driven towards going for that.
You said this team has figured out what it takes to win in this league. What's it like working with Tom Kelenic, the owner here at the Lake Country DockHounds, as he's a big part of the team that is out on the field, in addition to the manager, Ken Huckaby, as the managers in the American Association and really all of the MLB partner leagues? They are probably the biggest part of making sure that they control the roster.
Yeah, working for Tom and working for this baseball group has been fantastic. Having the Kelenic name attached to our brand not only makes it easier for us to, go and talk to agents, go and talk to players, and have a familiar brand for people. But Tom wants to win just as bad as anyone, and that makes me strive and push forward every day, and try and find that little edge for us where, whether it's a scouting report, whether it's video, whether it's finding a player that not a lot of people may believe in. Tom is the one who's saying, hey, we need this, we need that, and it's my job to say, hey, we might have an issue here, we might have an issue here, and it's a lot of just working together and bouncing ideas off of each other, and it's forcing me to be more thorough and do a better job, and so I appreciate everyone within this organization because they've just been fantastic.
And what I say when people ask me about your role is that your main job is to go out and find the players, and then you present them to Paul Wagner if they're a pitcher, you present them to Pano, Huck, and Tom if they're a hitter, and then of course they all get to have their say and you have a conversation about it. But how do you go about finding the players, whether it be college players that are maybe not going to be drafted to MLB organizations, players who get released, and determining whether they could be interested or there's someone who you want to reach out to, or whether it's someone who had an injury and hasn't played in a year, or someone who took 3 years away from baseball and did whatever, but now they're interested in coming back, and their way to get back is through an MLB partner league. How do you go out and find them?
I think first of all, it's replacing who we lose, right? So to lose guys like Curtis Terry and Ryan Hernandez, for example, it makes it easier on me to say, hey, we need to go out and we need to find someone who's going to put the ball over the fence, right? And, it's all about the team and how we're able to put together 25 guys to help make the overall roster win. But going and finding those guys, like you said, we try and look for guys who they're one reason away from being in an MLB organization, right? Like you said, someone may have had 3 successful years and, they have an injury-plagued AA season and, they age out of their level and all of a sudden they're a free agent. I believe that's a guy who just had one poor season due to injury, and he's still a very talented baseball player. So we try and read very much into the circumstances of each player and, how we think we can benefit them and get them back to affiliate ball, because that's really the goal here, is to not only win while they're in Lake Country, but also to move them in their careers. And that's the strength of Lake Country, is to, get our players who succeed out of here for the next year and go on to bigger and better things, and then bring the next crop of talented DockHounds players in for the next season.
We had very exciting news last night that Mitchell Miller, standout reliever for the DockHounds, got transferred to the Minnesota Twins, so he'll get his first taste of affiliate ball. He graduated from college last summer, pitched in the Northwoods League, stood out, and we said we got to have him, signed him, and he was the DockHounds setup man. How cool is it for you to see someone, I don't want to say live out their dream, but get a shot at their dream because of the DockHounds and because we were able to recruit that player?
Yeah, it's really rewarding, just personally seeing that. I don't want to ever claim that, we changed anyone or we were the reason that their development got them to where they were, but, definitely giving people a platform to, show their talents and their abilities, and that eventually gets them to a higher level. That's something that's very rewarding for myself, and, I know the rest of the baseball staff here feels the same way, and, just like Mitch going on to, the Twins, we have, John Duplantier, who just went over to Japan. Marek Kloop went over to Japan. And we have multiple players who will be playing in Mexico this season. So just really happy for those guys that they get to, not only financially but professionally get to play at higher levels. And it's just really exciting, the people that we got to work with, and now getting to see them basically live out the plan that we sold them on here.
And baseball is a truly unique sport in the fact that it's not fully X's and O's. There's a huge aspect of a clubhouse nature because you're playing each and every day. So it's super important for you to get along with your teammates and make sure that everything gels between you and the coaches and the front office who's getting all that information. How do you balance that and additionally the pay, because of course these players are paid in the American Association, and getting talented players to make sure it all blends together as best as possible so the DockHounds can go out and win?
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle in that respect. Like we do not want to bring in people who are bad people. We like to bring in people who are good character people, good teammates, and good for the clubhouse. We don't really put up with, if you're a bad teammate, you're not playing here. That's kind of the rule. But, you know, and that's another thing. You talk about the financials. Not everyone is able to financially play, whether it's the American Association, play minor league baseball. So it's a sacrifice for all these guys to be out here and to play. And so, you know, we try and obviously pay everyone a fair amount and, you know, give everyone what they're worth. And, you know, we try and check all the boxes, you know, good character, pay everyone well, and then, you know, that we're putting a talented team on the field. So to put all those three things together, it's very tough to do that, but, you know, it just means that we have to be very thorough in our job, and there's more baseball players available than ever. So, you know, there's lots of talented people out there. You just have to go out and find them.
And another huge part of your role is that you scout for the Country DockHounds. And that became a lot easier this past season with TrackMan.
Yes.
You and AJ were able to make these incredible reports that the players and even the coaches absolutely loved. How cool is it for you to give a scouting report to some of these players that they're able to get this information and then to see it out on the field and see, hey, they executed what we talked about? What's that feeling like? Because these guys, they have the talent, and they don't always put in the work themselves. This isn't a diss on any of the players, but they rely on you guys to do some of the research for them, and then to see them go execute the game plan that you put together. What's that feeling like?
It's awesome. AJ did a fantastic job with the scouting reports last year, and, you know, we did a great job going pitchers and hitters, and it's awesome. You know, you love to go into a game plan and say, hey, you know, here's how we're attacking this hitter. And, you know, we attack him in that way, and he goes 0 for 4. Or, you know, hey, this pitcher is going to try and come at you this way. You might want to sit and wait for a certain pitch, and then that's exactly what happens. It's, you know, it's very rewarding again, but you feel better for the player because, you know, obviously every double, every single, every home run, it adds up, and that's eventually what matters for them and what they go to their next teams with. As, hey, I'm this type of player, I'm a 20 home run player, I'm a 30 home run player. So, you know, it's great to give them that, you know, springboard, because we feel the harder we work off the field, it's going to be that much easier for them on the field, and hopefully it's that much easier to take down competition.
And part of that whole aspect of you giving those reports to the players and giving them to the coaches and then giving them to Tom, because he is a part of the decision-making, you have to be able to relate with the players, the ownership, and the coaches here. How do you manage all of those relationships? I
mean, you know, you've got to want it just like they want it. You know, you've got to want their success just like they want their success. Now, obviously, you know, it'd be great to have 25 people for 100 games and, you know, play a full season and we do exceptionally well and everybody plays out and we win a ring. That's great. But at the same time, you know, I'm happy for John Duplantier that he got to go to Japan. I'm happy that Marek Klup, you know, gets to play at a higher level. At the end of the day, we want these guys to be at higher levels and, you know, them to strive to do well on the field every single day. So, you know, just it's really rewarding to see, you know, them getting to do that. But also it's just, we want to win on the field. You know, we've got to win for Tom and for this ownership group and the baseball group that, you know, has entrusted us with this, but you also want to win for the players and get them, you know, to better places and, you know, see them happy on the field. You know, during our 23-9 stretch to end the season last year, a lot of people on the team reference that as their favorite time in professional baseball. And that's a really special thing to hear because, you know, we're independent ball. You know what affiliate ball looks like, and obviously that's what every player is gunning for. It's really, it makes me very happy to know that people not only enjoy their time here, but also get to continue playing.
Let's talk about some of the players that we have for this upcoming season, because there's a fair amount of returners, far more than there were last season. I've got 7 returning pitchers, 3 starters, and 4 relievers, or at least that's what they pitched like last year. It's got to be a good feeling that you have some returning arms that you know what they're going to do when they step on the field at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park.
Right, 100%. We're very excited to have Brett, Kelvin, and Luke back in the rotation. We signed Luke last year midseason from Wisconsin Milwaukee. I think he did a great job for him pitching almost 150 innings last year, combined between college ball and summer ball and the DockHounds. Kelvin we traded for last July to get with the Marcus Chu deal. Kelvin did a great job down the stretch for us, making 8 starts. We're excited to have him back in the rotation. And then Brett did a fantastic job last year. 19 games, 18 starts. He was the ace of our staff for a very long time. That's something that's very invaluable, returning pitching. And then, we get JT Miller back in the bullpen. He did a fantastic job in his first taste of professional ball coming from McNeese. We got Matt Mullenbach, who's about as solid and reliable as ever coming out of a bullpen in this league. And then, we have a high upside arm in Jack Washburn. He's been throwing 93, 94. We're excited to see him. And then we got Shelby Lackey coming back with his airbender. And, we're excited about the arms we're returning. And, it's obviously we've lost a lot of arms, but that's kind of the cost of talent, So we're excited and very fortunate to have these 7 back. And, we're expecting big things from them.
It's pretty crazy, the DockHounds bullpen. The 3 most consistent or 3 most dominant arms the team had in the bullpen, Jake Candleberry, Mitchell Miller, and Alan Carter, all 3 able to move on and go to a higher level of baseball. So how do you go about replacing some of those arms?
Yeah, it's going and looking back, what things about Alan stood out to us, right? What things about Jake stood out to us? What things, we're looking for guys who obviously certain things in their pitch profiles, whether, Alan, we really liked the fastball splitter. We're trying to look for guys who have that certain velocity or that certain movement on their pitches. But also it's, I think right now we've got a very deep bullpen and, we've got a lot of guys who we really like the talent, and I think they're going to come in here and battle out their roles. So, we might already be replacing, Carter and Candleberry and all those arms that we've lost. But, it remains to be seen. We're very excited about not only the returners, but who we have coming in.
And 3 of the new arms, and correct me if there's any additional arms, but Jay Ulmer, Noah Manning, and Connor Fenlong, they're all 3 right-handed arms that will be playing at the highest level of professional baseball. And one of the things that you have access to is the TrackMan data and just being able to see some of the data on what has made these guys so effective. What can you say about using analytics to try and go and get future players?
Yeah, using analytics definitely. For me, reading the numbers is one thing where it's a stat line. Reading a stat line is one thing where it's, hey, this guy had, a certain ERA in this amount of innings. This was his strikeout rate. This was his walk rate, hit rate, everything. The pitch breakdowns basically show you kind of how he got to those numbers, right? And what pitch might be getting hit especially hard. What pitch might he excel at? And for hitters, kind of the opposite. What sort of pitches is he struggling on? Where in the zone do they kind of get exposed? So it's just kind of going along those same profiles that we've determined we think are going to help us win, and trying to find guys who do exactly that.
And some other arms that the DockHounds have brought in, they've gone along with the profile of simply throwing more strikes. And that's something the DockHounds did not do very well their first 2 years. That'd be putting it lightly. And then the team did arguably an even worse job at the beginning of last season. All of a sudden, flipped the switch, and things were great for the pitching staff last year. How important is it for the DockHounds to simply throw strikes in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, throwing strikes makes you competitive, right? And especially in this ballpark, what we always say to guys, we want you to give up 1, not 3, right? And how that happens is, if you pick a play around the zone and, you're kind of playing on the corners the whole time, you might get an umpire who puts 2 on the bases for you then. And then if you make one competitive pitch that a batter beats you on, it's 3-0 and not 1-0, right? So our main focus is you go at every batter to get them out, and if you have to live with a solo home run, you live with a solo home run. And so that's not only a mindset / approach thing that, obviously has changed, but also, looking at guys who historically have played in the zone very much throughout their careers, and also still have the pitch repertoires where we think they can still play in the zone in this league and, keep guys off the bases.
You brought up Wisconsin Brewing Company Park. It's a behemoth for batters. I know that hitters want to come here because it may juice or inflate their numbers a little bit, but do you ever get the sense that some pitchers maybe don't want to come here because it's a tough park to pitch in given the turf infield and then shorter dimensions for the majority of the ballpark?
That's something that can both work in your favor and against you. So we try and use it in our favor. We tell pitchers, hey, if you come here and dominate, then teams will definitely take a notice because you're playing in a hitter's park, you're playing against good competition, and you have all the factors working against you. If you went and pitched in a great park and it's kind of a dead zone for hitters, teams might say, well, you went and pitched in the middle of nowhere, right? It's the same thing. If a Rockies pitcher does well, obviously you give that guy his flowers because that's incredible. So that's kind of what our pitch is, hey, you come here and you pitch well here, people will know you can pitch well anywhere pretty much.
It's great insight on DockHounds pitchers from Jack Jennings. This is DockHaus Dialogue with Dom. We got a couple more minutes with Jack, and then we have trivia tonight with Skipper Dave. That'll start at 6:30. We've always got cool festivities going on these Wednesday nights at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park. Demetrius Sims returning for his 3rd season with the Lake Country DockHounds. He will become the first position player to play in 3 seasons for Lake Country. How important is it to have a player that the fans can identify with so that when they come to the ballpark, they know that he's going to be there and they can watch and enjoy seeing him play?
It's very important, and obviously, we wish we could return absolutely everyone every single year, but that's unfortunately not the nature of, this business. But to have someone like Meach here on the field every day in front of our fans it's something that you can't really put into words, and the value. It's great. Not only is he a fantastic player, but he's a fantastic person, very personable, and he came here when I came here 3 years ago, and he's been here ever since, and he's just been fantastic. And so having someone like Meach not only on our infield, but someone who is in our community and is a DockHound, it's something that's very cool. And I know Demetrius, I'm sure, prides himself in kind of slowly becoming the face of this franchise, and he's been great with fans, and I know he's running his own camps now and stuff. So it's really cool to see that he's kind of really put his footprint in this community.
So much so that he decided to move here this offseason. 2 other returning outfielders from last year's team, and they were a big part of the reason the DockHounds were able to make that push coming out of the All-Star break to make the Miles Wolf Cup playoffs. JT Benson, he was signed after the All-Star break, had a great first series, and he really kept that rolling through the entire month of August. And then Ray Zuber III, he got off to a good start, then suffered an injury, had to sit out for nearly a month, and then coming out of the All-Star break, once he got his feet settled underneath him after recovering from that injury, he was a killer. He was unbelievable for the DockHounds, really locked down left field. It's got to be nice to have 2 corner outfielders that the team can go out there and trust.
100%. I mean, you have to love the way Ray and JT play baseball if you're a fan of baseball. I mean, Ray and JT are both great on the base pass. They steal tons of bases. They're fantastic at the dish. They don't strike out very much. They take their walks, but they can do lots of damage when they get their swings off. And it's Ray and JT are, again, 2 great people, and we're excited to have them back in the fold. And Ray and JT, once Ray got healthy and once JT came on the team, we saw kind of the effects of what happened last year. And so, we're hoping for a full healthy season for both of them, and we think the sky's the limit for each.
Luke Napleton's also going to be undergoing his first full professional season. And then Brian Ray, who was not with the DockHounds this past season after he killed it in 2023. He played in Venezuela last year, and he's gone to Puerto Rico the last handful of winters, including winning a batting title in Puerto Rico in 2023 after his time with the DockHounds. He might be the most exciting returning or just exciting bat on this team.
Right, yeah, 100%. When I got the call from Tom that B-Ray might want to come back, it was a pretty crazy call for me to process that. But, we're extremely excited to have Brian back. He might be one of the best hitters in this league. And, for us to lose Curtis and lose Ryan and then just, have Brian kind of just want to come back, it's really fantastic. And we're fortunate. And I think it goes to show the type of culture that we have here that, Brian went and won a title in Puerto Rico, and he'd like to come back and play for us again. So, and then Luke, he 29 home runs at Quincy, went and hit 330 last year at Louisville. We think he has a long way to go in terms of potential. He's got a ton of potential, and so we're excited to have him behind the dish, and he's coming back and getting to see 7 arms that he saw last year as well.
Robbie Tenerowitz signed with the Lake Country DockHounds last year and then was only here for a day in training camp before he got signed by the San Diego Padres to go be in their affiliated program. And then a couple other players that are standouts that I know that you are excited about, Joe Gray and Drew Brucher, 2 outfielders that I know that the coaching staff are very high on. Trip Clark will be in his first full pro season as catcher. Luke Roscom acquired from the Lincoln Salt Dogs. Dante Stewart, who played with Trip Clark in the Pioneer League, his first full pro season as well. And then Nick Northcutt, who's a big power hitter. You're assuming that power is going to play at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park? Yeah,
I guess we can start on Nick. He played last year in AA for the Cincinnati Reds organization, which is the Chattanooga Lookouts, and they played in the Southern League, which is a notoriously horrible league for hitting. Nick had 26 home runs last year. We think the power is legitimate, and we think there are certain changes with the swing and approach that might be able to cut his strikeout rate. So we're extremely excited to have Nick in this ballpark. We think he's going to be a real force in our lineup. Aaron Hill and Robbie Tenerowitz, 2 veteran guys. Super excited to have them. They both are some mashers. Aaron Hill went 20 home runs, 38 steals last year in the Atlantic League. Robbie was great in AA for the Padres, as you know. And then, Drew Brucher came out of University of South Florida this past year. He also went to the Pioneer League, and, in 40, 50 games, hit about 350. So we're just very excited about, especially this lineup that we have returning, and also the newcomers that are coming in. We think they're going to do a lot of damage and help us win a lot of games.
So all of that we just talked about, this couple players that we didn't get to touch on, Jacob Nix, of course, probably being the headlining pitcher. Yeah. What are the expectations that you and this group have for the DockHounds this season? And you could be 100% honest, or you could just go swing for the fences right now. Hit it.
We want a ring. That's about it. We want a ring. I think everybody in the building wants to win, and I think all the players want to win, and what's the other option? It's losing. So who wants that? So, we really want to come in here and win a lot of games in front of home fans. And, we want to bring back this first trophy for this team. And, I think we came very close this past year and then ran into Kane County, who was just an excellent team. And, I think that always leaves a kind of empty feeling in your stomach that, we want to get back. So, we'd like a championship, and I hope all these guys make it to the MLB one day.
It was a bad taste in everyone's mouth here with the Lake Country DockHounds after how the postseason ended, especially given how the regular season ended on such a strong note. You think back to that the Saturday night where the Lake Country DockHounds clinched the playoffs. It was quite the scene here at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park.
Just seeing all the fans within the stadium and getting seeing the players celebrating with everyone, in that moment it really showed just how much it meant to everyone and just how much it meant to Tom and this ownership group and just everyone within the building. People say winning cures all. It might not cure all, but it cures a lot. And that's what we want to do from day one this next year.
Yeah, the fans really hit the accelerator once the team started to win. Word got out. The game started to become a little more fun, just because winning's fun, and the attendance, it definitely went up. Let's flip it back onto you, Jack, before we wrap this up. Once again, thank you for joining me. Future aspirations for you, because, of course, an indie ball baseball operations manager is not a sustainable career for the next 25 years. Say in 5 or 10 years down the line, what role do you want to be doing?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know what role I'll be in or what I'd like to be doing, but I know I'd love to be within baseball operations for a major league franchise, and just, I get it. Being a part of winning every day is something that, I love to do, and I love being a part of, helping guys trying to, just excel at what they're doing. And so I'd love to be in a part of, whether that's, helping the on-field talent win every game, or it's, going off the field and trying to find other talent, whether that's in a draft or free agency or whatever. I'm very passionate about baseball operations, and would love to be in an organization one day, and hopefully that'll happen soon. But until then, the goal is to win here and win big.
Certainly pulling for it. And then just some programming notes before we wrap this up. Next week, 5:45, as always, here in the DockHaus of Wisconsin Brewing Company Park, Tristan Kaufmann. He is our season ticket manager. With all of our season ticket holders, they go through Tristan. So come learn more about his story and what couple promotions we have upcoming for season ticket holders, so that maybe you can be a DockHound season ticket holder. And then 2 weeks from now, that is on March 19th, once again, 5:45, DockHounds pitching coach, former Major League pitcher, including for the Milwaukee Brewers, and local native Wisconsin, Paul Wagner, will be our guest here on the DockHaus Dialogue. When we come back next week, I should have guests lined up for the following weeks, but those are the programming notes we have for the latter half of March for the DockHaus Dialogue with Dom. We got trivia tonight. We have bingo next week. We've got so much stuff going on at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park. Make sure to come down. It's just off I-94, and check it out. Thanks again to everyone who came out tonight. We've got trivia coming up in just a couple of minutes. And Jack, thank you for joining me tonight. I know our fans greatly appreciated your insight on the DockHounds in the past and also going forward in the future.
Dom, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this talk, and I'm excited for this next season. We're really ready to start opening day.